After feminizing Star Wars, Hollywood apparently wants to feminize the James Bond franchise next. The rumor mill in Hollywood has it that Danny Boyle wanted the next Bond film to be left-wing and incorporate the Me Too theme. Then there were creative differences and now the studio is looking for a new director. The movie has been pushed back. We've also heard from the production company and the rights owners that they want to kill Bond off. Kill off their character that made them so much money and pave the way for a female protagonist in subsequent movies. Now, Star Wars, in the last couple of films, Star Wars has killed off the beloved characters such as Luke Skywalker and Han Solo after showing them to be failures. Han Solo was not a good father, and Han Solo basically regressed back to the point where we first met him. He's still a pirate, or he's gone back to being a terrible pirate who always gets chased by his customers or whomever he screwed over this time, right? And we've also seen Luke Skywalker regress back to the stage where we first met him, right? When we first met him, he was a lonely young man in the desert doing pretty much nothing of any significance. And in the one of the latest Star Wars movie, we see Luke Skywalker on this tiny island, Skywalker doing really nothing of any importance. So the men, these characters, they're failures, they failed, and they need to die, and they need to be relieved out of their misery, and they get killed off in the movies, and they get replaced by these female characters, which the original fans just do not like because they're terrible characters. And so in Star Wars, in the new Star Wars movies, the female characters are all kind of goddesses who don't really have to train to become these warriors. They just are perfect warriors, or almost perfect warriors to begin with. And they have none of these bad, terrible attributes that the men have. So if Hollywood continues this trend, if they feminize James Bond, is this going to improve society? Is this going to curb male narcissism? So are we going to cure male narcissism and male group narcissism by promoting female narcissism? No, it's not going to work. So even sane men from the normal spectrum are being driven away by these franchises. So if the new Star Wars movies are terrible, if the new Bond movies are terrible, people are going to look elsewhere. And if they feel like they're being manipulated by Hollywood, by this anti-man campaign and agenda, if they feel manipulated, they're more likely to run into the other direction and run towards male narcissism and male group narcissism. So, for example, they are more likely to tolerate President Donald Trump, who's a womanizer, but and you know all these stories. So men are more likely to accept Trump's behavior, or men can watch endless amounts of free internet porn that is degrading towards women. I mean, most of that porn comes out of Los Angeles, same place that we now see these feminized franchises come out of. And yeah, there's so many war movies and war documentaries coming out of Hollywood, glorifying certain individuals or groups or wars or certain units within the armed forces and so on and so forth. So you still have an ocean of this fantasies type stuff and this male narcissistic, unrealistic stuff. And for the kids, you have the Transformer movies, for example, where the protagonist gets the sexy girls and he saves the world and he has all these cool gadgets and the cool cars. So it's not that much different from Bond. So if we're losing the Bond franchise, if Bond gets feminized and many men don't want to watch it anymore, there's 100 new other things that these men can watch that are more traditional or narcissistic, right? And of course, men can watch the old Bond movies if they're so inclined to, because we now have access to every piece of entertainment at your fingertips. So, Hollywood, by feminizing these franchises, Hollywood is not improving society one bit. You know, it's just pushing female narcissism is not going to curb male narcissism. Quite the opposite. And yeah, they're putting out opposite kind of stuff. You know, the SJW snowflake trash, and then the same Los Angeles is putting out this ridiculous male narcissistic trash, ranging from not just films and television shows, but also music and music stars and sports stars and all this womanizing and the gangster lifestyle and driving the Lamborghinis and being the cool guy and so on and so forth. That's kind of what Hollywood is doing right now. And so don't get pushed into this into a certain direction, right? Hollywood doesn't expect traditional men or conservative men. They don't expect them to turn. They don't expect them to become snowflakes and supporters of a narcissistic type of feminism, right? I mean, if we're talking equal rights and equal pay, that's great, right? Equal rights, equal pay, that's great. But don't combine this with, don't combine feminism with narcissism. That's not a good idea. So, then we had Idris Elba, rumored for the leading role of Bond, but he's already too old and he just does not fit the books that the Bond franchise is based on. So, well, if Hollywood turns Bond into a black guy, now that's going to gain a few fans, it's going to lose him a few fans, and it's not going to change society in any meaningful, positive way. And so, even in the last couple of Bond movies, we've seen sort of a ridiculous agenda. Now, James Bond's boss was mostly a woman for the last couple of movies, who was sort of a mom who needed to educate him and control him. And we saw more female characters, like in Quantum of Solace, who were on an equal footing with Bond, or could even trick Bond, like in Casino Royale. Even though the whole idea of Bond is that he is the best. That he is the best at what he's doing. Now, would you watch a sports event? Would you watch a sports game where everybody is just average and people don't especially run very fast and they're not good tactical players by any means? Would you watch that? No, we wouldn't watch that. So Bond was supposed to be an exaggerated alpha man, you know, and so it ruins kind of the idea if you have female characters in there or any other characters in there who are better than Bond, who could trick him, who are just as cool or just as much an action hero. Then we saw minor female characters in the last couple of Bond movies who end up in bed with Bond and die afterwards, such as in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, because of Bond's mission or his recklessness. Oh my god, he uses these women and then they get killed. And that's probably going to be the setup for the next Bond movie, or the one after that, if they actually kill off Bond. They're gonna kill him off because he was a sinner, because he wronged women or whatever, or he's racked up too many bodies, and so he must die, or he represents the old male-dominated world, and now we need a new female Bond who's doing things in a different way, or whatever. Now, what Hollywood didn't really dare to do with Star Wars and Bond so far, or over the last decade, what Hollywood didn't dare to do is write female villains of meaning, because such a level of feminism would actually be interesting again. So the last bad guys in Bond movies and Star Wars were all boring caricatures of emotionally unstable men, such as Le Chiffre Dominic, the guy from Skyfall, and this Austrian dude in Spectre. So, Bond villains used to be alpha men who felt comfortable in their psychopathic position and personality. So, for example, in Star Wars, you had Vader, and there was a point to it. Vader represented the dark side of the Force, which is attractive, which is luring you into the dark side of the Force. So there has to be some kind of a draw. And these new these new Star Wars villains, they're all just screaming. They're these kind of characters who are really insecure, and then they have to scream a lot. And the latest a bad guy, he doesn't even know if he's good or bad or whatever. And in Bond, you had Le Chiffre, who was not really that interesting. Then Dominic, who was Dominic Green, I think was his name, who's also a thin guy and not very handsy, you know. Then the guy from Skyfall, who was gay and repressed, and he hated the MI6 boss, who was kind of like his mother, hates his mother, right? Mommy issues. And then the Austrian dude in Spectre, and Spectre was horrible. This was a backstory of jealousy and this sort of half-brother thing, or whatever it was. I watched it only once. Again, men who don't move past their childhood issues. So even if Danny Boyle won't ruin the latest Bond, there's sure to be another director to do that job. And yeah, it's unfortunate that entertaining franchises such as Star Wars and Bond got feminized in that sort of way. It's unfortunate, but of course Hollywood puts out so much narcissistic entertainment and pornography and music. Everybody can find narcissistic stuff. Everybody can find narcissistic stuff out there, and that's kind of the real problem. That is something that we all should change. So turn off your television, turn all that stuff off. If it's annoying you, just read a book, do something that's really, really cool, you know, for men or for women. Learn about espionage for real. Learn about the intelligence game from actual books written by professionals, and of course you have to interpret these books. And I made a video about how you can learn from books about intelligence and not get diverted and misled. But that's a really cool thing, you know. Just learn about the psychology of yourself and other people, and learn about the intelligence game. And yeah, try to be as strong as you can be. And that's more important than what nonsense Hollywood is putting out right now, or will be putting out in the subsequent couple of years. Now, the original Star Wars storyline was very, very simplistic. It was kind of this esoteric, occult storyline of a guy who is destined for more, and then he meets this magical esoteric group, and they train him to be this warrior in their fight. And then he transforms and becomes more than a human. He develops magical powers. So that, of course, was sort of inspiring for men, right? To look for more. To look for meaning, to influence society around you in a positive way. But of course, we all know we're not going to be part of some intergalactic adventure, or we're not going to be we're not likely to become historical characters who dance with the leading bad guys and save the world. But if you actually learn about something that's meaningful, and if you turn off this television, you're more likely to become some sort of a hero, men or women, right? So if you like this video, please comment down below, share this, and support us on Patreon.